What if I told you the biggest moment of the Super Bowl wasn't a touchdown, it was a warning? A U.S. citizen stood on America's biggest stage, and the president called it un-American. Not because of violence, not because of hate, but because of language, because of culture, because of who was speaking. This wasn't just a halftime show, it was a test of who America says belongs.
On February 8th, 2026, Super Bowl LX became more than a football game. It turned into a national cultural flashpoint that reached far beyond sports. That night, Bad Bunny, the Puerto Rican global superstar, made history by delivering the first predominantly Spanish-language halftime performance ever seen at a Super Bowl. More than 100 million people watched worldwide. Within hours, the reaction exploded. President Donald Trump took to Truth Social and publicly condemned the performance, calling it absolutely terrible and one of the worst ever. He went further, describing it as a slap in the face to America, claiming that no one could understand the language and labeling the performance inappropriate for children. These were not rumors. These were verified, documented statements made by the sitting president of the United States on his official social media account. But this moment was never just about music or personal taste. From a legal and institutional perspective, Trump's comments raised a far deeper question. Who gets to define what is considered American? Bad Bunny is not a foreign artist. He is Puerto Rican, and Puerto Ricans are United States citizens. They have been since 1917. They carry U.S. passports. They serve in the U.S. military. They are governed by federal law. Yet again and again, their place in the American identity is publicly questioned. When the President of the United States suggests that a Puerto Rican artist's language is foreign or un-American, it sends a powerful signal, not because it breaks the law, but because it reflects a mindset that shapes policy, public discourse, and the daily experiences of millions of American citizens.
To understand why this moment matters, you need to understand who Bad Bunny is. Born Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio in Vega Baja, Puerto Rico, he is one of the most commercially successful artists in the world. He has topped global streaming charts for years, sold out stadiums internationally, and released multiple #1 albums entirely in Spanish. Just 1 week before the Super Bowl, he made Grammy history by winning Album of the Year with a Spanish-language album, a first in the award show's history. During his acceptance speech, he made a pointed political statement addressing immigration enforcement, signaling his growing role not just as an entertainer, but as a cultural voice. That context matters. Because the Super Bowl halftime show is not just entertainment, it is a national stage. It reflects whose culture is celebrated, whose voices are amplified, and whose identity is accepted as part of the American story. For decades, that stage has largely centered English-speaking performers. Bad Bunny's performance challenged that tradition directly. It celebrated Puerto Rican culture, Caribbean rhythms, and Spanish-language expression at the center of America's most watched event. And that challenge triggered a response that revealed a deeper tension, one that has existed in American institutions for generations. This was not just backlash, it was a debate about belonging. So where does this leave America?
A Puerto Rican artist stood on the biggest stage in American sports and said, without apology, "We are American." His performance celebrated culture, language, and identity that have existed within the United States for generations. The law is clear. Puerto Ricans have been U.S. citizens for more than a century. The Constitution does not require English to define American identity. There is no statute that limits patriotism to one language, one rhythm, or one cultural expression. Yet this moment exposed a deeper truth. American identity is not only defined by laws. It is shaped by rhetoric, it is reinforced by power, and it is challenged every time marginalized communities step into spaces that were never designed with them in mind.
When a sitting president dismisses a historic performance as foreign or un-American, it does not erase citizenship on paper, but it does influence how belonging is perceived, how policies are justified, and how entire communities are treated in public life. History shows us this pattern again and again. Cultural expression becomes political the moment it disrupts the status quo. Artists are labeled divisive, voices are framed as threats, and representation itself is turned into controversy. But history also shows something else. Public accountability matters. Millions of Americans pushed back. They corrected the record. They reminded the country that Puerto Ricans are Americans, that Spanish is part of American history, and that culture does not need permission to exist. This response did not come from courts or legislation. It came from civic engagement, from public discourse, and from people refusing to let misinformation define national identity.
That is how democracies are tested. Not in moments of comfort, but in moments of conflict. Not by silence, but by response. Not by erasure, but by documentation. What happened after Super Bowl LX will be part of the historical record. A performance, a presidential reaction, and a national debate about who belongs in America's story. And the truth is simple. America has never been one voice. It has always been many. If you want to understand how power, culture, and politics collide behind the headlines, if you want documented analysis, not noise, and if you believe the truth matters more than political spin, then stay connected with World Dark Files. Here, we break down the moments that shape history, using facts, records, and institutional analysis. No distractions, no misinformation, just the stories that powerful people don't want ignored. Subscribe, stay informed, and keep questioning the narrative. Because history isn't written by silence. It's written by those who document the truth.